Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Lottie. I am the Strategic Research Initiatives Program Manager here at the Institute for Engineering and Medicine at the University of Minnesota. Great to have everyone with us, and a special welcome to the Burroughs Wellcome Fund team. Uh, IEM and ATP-Bio are the host of this event, and the co-host of this event, I should say. And the director of both IEM and ATP-Bio, John Bischoff, had a previous engagement. So to welcome the team here, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Mehmet Toner from Massachusetts General Hospital. He is the Associate Director of ATP-Bio. So Mehmet, I'll turn it over to you. And then if Hubert is not on, we'll just get started with the Burroughs Welcome presentation right after you're done.
Sounds good, and thank you for everybody. And we are really looking forward to Burroughs Welcome presentation. It's a very competitive funding mechanism, but it's one that really catapults young people's professional life, especially in academia. It's a very important one. It has some unique components, and we are grateful that you are with us to share some of those details. And thank you very much.
And with that, just briefly introduce Dr. Lou Mugila. I hope I pronounced that correctly based on our email yesterday. And he is leading the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, and I'll let him take it away and talk about all of the strategic research initiative opportunities that they have for all the students and other people on the call. So
Great.
Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And good afternoon, everyone. I'll start by introducing my team that's joining us for the call. On with me from the Burroughs Wellcome Fund are Dr. Victoria McGovern, our Chief Strategy Officer, who also leads our Pathogenesis of Infectious Disease program in our Climate Change and Human Health Initiative. Alfred Mays, our Chief Diversity Officer and Senior Program Officer that leads our Science Education and Diversity portfolios. And Dr. Tammy Collins, who is our Senior Program Officer and leads our Innovations in Regulatory Sciences program, and most importantly, our Scientific Interfaces program, which has a substantial engineering component to it, as well as other sciences outside of traditional biologically based opportunities. So what I'd like to take the next about 20 to 25 minutes to do is just really broadly introduce you to the Burroughs Wellcome Fund programs that you may think about applying for, or let other people know that you're applying for. But the one thing I will say at the start is, if there's one take-home message that you get from this presentation, is that we look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions about any of the programs for you or your faculty or your trainees, give us a call, let us know. And the program officers are always delighted to be able to field questions, determine eligibility, and identify suitability as well. So I always like to get started by clarifying what the Burroughs Wellcome Fund is. And there's a lot of confusion around it for many folks, because a lot of organizations have the name Wellcome in the title. So the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, which we represent, started as the philanthropic arm of the Burroughs Wellcome Company. The Burroughs Wellcome Company was founded in the 1880s by Silas Burroughs and Henry Wellcome, and it really turned into a global pharmaceutical company of enormous scale, as you know, really capitalizing on repackaging of medications and developing new medications, and had really global growth during the 20th century. The Burroughs Wellcome Fund, as I mentioned, was established in 1955 as the philanthropic arm of the company. So we've been in existence about 70 years, but we didn't become a separate 501c3 nonprofit, separate from the company and separate from the Wellcome Trust, when the Wellcome Trust provided a gift to establish us as independent of $400 million in 1993. So we're not part of the Wellcome Trust. We're not part of any pharmaceutical company. We are our own independent 501c3 organization that basically runs our own agenda. We don't do fundraising. We invest this initial endowment that we received from the Wellcome Trust, and that's grown to over $800 million right now, depending on which day of the week the stock market you look at is. And we've given away about $1 billion in grants at the same time. So we're very proud of being able to support biomedical sciences broadly and use this money to leverage continued growth as well. So the primary missions, as you heard, are to help scientists early in their careers to develop as independent investigators and to advance fields in basic biomedical sciences that are undervalued or in need of particular encouragement. We categorize ourselves with that $800+ million endowment as a moderate-sized science philanthropy organization, and really want to be strategic in the way we use our funds to catalyze discovery in a way that leads to transformative change that really is outsized to the investment that we initially can provide. So how will we measure our success in achieving these missions? The number of scientists that we have supported to become successful independent investigators is obviously one. Enhancing the diversity of the biomedical research community, and we're very committed to that. We're still very proactive in our stance on broadly engaging diversity across geography, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual identity, and we believe that that is essential to ask questions in a way that lead to meaningful answers. We hope to determine the number of transformative researchers and scientific questions we have invested in, particularly in underfunded areas, and then obviously quantify the number of discoveries that have led to changes in human health for the positive. So with these goals in mind, we invest about $40 million or so a year, depending on, not all of our programs run every year. Most of them do, a couple do not. But our mission statement is the Burroughs Wellcome Fund serves and strengthens society by nurturing a diverse group of leaders in biomedical sciences to improve human health through education, empowering discovery, and frontiers of greatest need. And so you can see the various buckets that our investments go into: interfaces in sciences, infectious diseases. Biomedical sciences is largely revolved around physician scientist training and reproductive sciences. And then we have our diversity in science and science education portfolios, and a growing investment in climate change and human health, as I'll tell you about shortly. So we're very proud of the distribution of ethnic and racial backgrounds that we support. We changed our way of collecting this information in 2024, which is why you see that split out there. But if you look at BIPOC investigators, individuals, peoples of color, we have about 60% of our awards going to individuals from different ancestry, from BIPOC backgrounds. And about 30% of those are from traditionally marginalized communities subject to structural racism and marginalization in the United States, like African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans and Islanders. And then this is the amount of funding, which basically parallels that. About half of our competitive awards go to BIPOC investigators. So with that, I thought I would take you through the various funding mechanisms that we currently are running, and look forward to any questions you have about those as we go through them. You can wait till the end, or you can let me know along the way if it's helpful to you. First, I again just wanted to list the program officers that are responsible for the different program areas. Tammy Collins is Interfaces and Regulatory Sciences, Victoria McGovern, Infectious Diseases, Career Guidance for Trainees, and Climate Change and Human Health, Alfred Mays, Science Education and Diversity in Science, and Paige Cooper, who is not able to join us today. She's out on maternity leave, leads our biomedical sciences and reproductive sciences program. And then we have a large effort around science communication that's led jointly by Russ Campbell and Mano Sekhan at the Burroughs Wellcome Fund. So I thought I would begin by talking about our career awards at the Scientific Interfaces, which is the program that Dr. Collins leads. It's a 5-year, $560,000 postdoc to faculty bridging award, supports the early career development of researchers bringing skills from physical, computational, mathematical sciences, and engineering to focus on biologic questions. It's really it's a very competitive program. It's, I believe, one of our very most successful. It's been longstanding. This runs annually, and we look forward to receiving applications. We do get so many applications that this one does entail a letter of intent initially, so that we can get down to a reasonable number of finalists to have come in. Then we have our Innovations in Regulatory Sciences Award that Dr. Collins also leads. This is a 5-year, $500,000 faculty award. This is eligible for faculty at any stage of seniority. It supports researchers bringing innovative and implementable solutions to regulatory questions. And we hope that they bring approaches spanning mathematics, computer science, physics, medicine, engineering, et cetera, to really accelerate the process from drug device and medical device and drug development into clinical practice, achieving FDA approval. So this does not fund clinical trials. It funds strategies about how to run clinical trials more effectively, for example, using real-world data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, alternatives to animal models, but it's meant to really streamline the process of getting things into clinical practice. Our Next Gen Pregnancy Initiative is a 4-year, $500,000 award. It runs every year. This year, we took a pause to do a terrain mapping exercises, but it's aimed at any faculty level, plus it can come from senior postdocs as well. And we hope to bring diverse interdisciplinary approaches to pregnancy research to address scientific issues related to adverse pregnancy outcomes broadly for mother and offspring. We're going to be reshaping that RFP a little bit, but the goals will essentially be the same for this. So stay tuned for a modification of this. This deadline is usually December 1st of every year, and we'll be running another round of it December 1st of this year. And again, one of our very most successful programs is led by Dr. McGovern. It's a longstanding program for investigators in the pathogenesis of infectious disease. It's a 5-year, $505,000 award. It's really targeted for the accomplished assistant professor level, perhaps early associate professor, to study infectious disease pathogenesis and host pathogen immune interaction. And its letters of intent will be due this coming July. Again, one of our longest standing programs, really since the inception of the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, has been the Career Awards for Medical Scientists. These are 5-year awards for physician scientists that are $700,000. And it's really meant to address the need for increasing support for early stage physician scientists, investigators. We really hope to not only support MD, PhD candidates, which have been traditionally the most successful in securing these grants, but we really look forward to supporting MDs that do not have PhDs, those that have had their identification of a clinical research topic identified later in their careers where there's really not other strong support for their independence. So we look forward to getting the award applications from MD PhDs, MDs without PhDs, and this includes veterinary scientists and dentists as well. I've just taken you through a brief tour of our competitive award programs. And again, most of these, as I mentioned, run annually. Some run every other year. Some we view as exploratory, which I haven't talked about, our Physician Scientist Institutional Awards. Those were run for 2 cycles. Those won't be rerun. But what I wanted to bring to your attention is this category of ad hoc proposals. These are requests for funding that don't neatly fit into one of the competitive award programs, but certainly don't circumvent the competitive award review process. These are continuous submission and consideration, and they're really not project-based. They're not sort of research project-oriented. They're more aligning with programmatic activities that develop capacity and resources for the scientific community more broadly. They often involve training, promoting diversity. They're often multi-institution oriented. They can develop databases, they can develop software packages, they can develop pipeline programs. They're usually 3 years or less in duration. They rarely go over $150,000 a year. If the requests come in and in total budget is less than $75,000 to support a convening or other activity, those can be improved in real time by our staff without it having to go to our board. Our board meets quarterly, so even requests that go to our board are done in a fairly rapid turnaround fashion. These are really done in consultation with the program officers whose question your topic aligns with. These are often iterative in nature. We are just going through a strategic planning process now for how we're going to consider these into the future, but we are open to talking with you about potential ideas, but we are putting a pause for the next 2 months or so on taking submissions of these right now, while we get our rubric and mechanisms for consideration in place. So I mentioned our commitment to diversity, and that's diversity of all types: race, ethnicity, age, gender, disabilities, geography, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, really bringing differences in real life lived experience to help really bring different vantage points to answering questions that have been challenging in the past. And we really view this as being not only scientifically beneficial, but really a voice for social justice, which we all hope to maintain in this time where typical strategies are being challenged. And one of our most successful programs that I hope you will consider your trainees to apply for is our postdoctoral diversity enrichment program led by Alfred Mays. The primary goal of PDEP is to substantially enhance the postdoctoral training experience of underrepresented minority junior scientists by providing enrichment support at critical junctions in their careers. It's not only underrepresented minorities, it's also individuals with diversity of all types that we've expanded this to. We really don't have a restriction on eligibility for this in terms of identifying what diversity means. It's a 3-year, it's a relatively small grant, $60,000 total award, $20,000 per year. And it's awarded to degree granting institutions in the US or Canada. And it's meant to be an enrichment activity, supporting courses, workshops, collaboration, networking, and mentoring. And these not only provide this enrichment activity, but it provides a community of other postdoctoral diversity awardees that really form a foundation, a community that people can share experiences with as well. Many of these awardees have gone on to compete successfully for our other award programs as well. So right now, we're supporting about 30 individuals through Burroughs Wellcome Fund on this. The Revson Foundation recognized this as being a very valuable program and didn't want to reinvent the Burroughs Wellcome Fund infrastructure to really support significantly fewer scholars, but in a similar way. So the Revson Foundation has partnered with us to have our review committee put forward suggestions to them about candidates that they may consider funding, because they only fund individuals in the greater New York area. So it allows us to fund up to potentially 35 postdoctoral fellows in total over that 3-year period of time. One of the things we're most excited about is our initiative in climate change and human health. And when I became president of the Burroughs Wellcome Fund in January of 2020, this was a very nascent initiative that really Dr. McGovern, myself, and our program staff have really taken on full force to move into the future. We began by really developing what we call our pilot grant program. These are seed grant applications of about $50,000 up to $50,000 per year, and they're reviewed quarterly. So we usually give three or four of these out every quarter. We're looking for really innovative, things that can be done with this, either bringing people together, looking at a scientific question, providing educational opportunities. And it's really been one of our most successful programs. It's funded not only universities, but museums, different institutions around the country. And you can see a list of our awards on our website. This is ongoing. It's been so successful, it's been reactivated for another 3 years. We also have our Climate and Health Interdisciplinary Awards. We just ran the final cycle of this, and it's going to really be superseded by now our Climate and Health Centers of Excellence grants. Our board in October of 2024 approved, no, I guess it was in May of 2024, approved $25 million to be invested over the next 5 years in identifying and supporting 2 to 3 centers of excellence in climate change and human health. So we're very excited about this. And what we hope these will do is allow institutions to accelerate interdisciplinary research at the interface of climate change and human health, from discovery through implementation and communication dissemination. We hope to enhance collaboration. We hope to provide opportunity for training professional students. And then we value outward focus, meaning extending what we're learning to the communities, and often communities that typically have not been engaged in the discussion around climate, but are suffering its consequences in great severity. So we encourage institutions to propose strategies that will enable and sustain collaborations across disciplines, like proposing cross-cutting pilot grants to provide preliminary data toward NIH, NSF, and other substantial awards. 20% of the budget can be applied to providing interdisciplinary training for terminal degree students. For example, linking basic research, public health, and nursing by creating a trained program with shared experience across schools. We don't want to necessarily dictate what these will look like. We look forward to creative ideas about innovative educational programs. And then, as I mentioned, we value our outward focus, requires community-focused work that serves the broader public by informing, educating, and readying a climate health-aware future. So each institution will orient its proposal around a core area of interest. We don't expect these centers of excellence to do all things related to climate change. Some may be around climate effects on infectious disease risks. Some may be around nutrition. Some may be around pregnancy outcomes. We look forward to that core activity that really distinguishes that group as its foundation. And again, these are going to be $2 million a year for 5 years for the institutions, which is a substantial amount of money, but we don't really anticipate somebody starting one of these centers new from scratch. There would likely have to be ongoing or an already developed interest in building some capacity around climate and human health to really be able to successfully compete with this. And again, as I mentioned, the grants are up to $10 million, $2 million a year for 5 years. And we anticipate funding 3 of these awards in 2 to 3 funding rounds, depending on how things look as they come in. And again, we may get such great applications, we actually go back to the board with a request for additional funding should we be successful in attracting the kind of attention and excellence that we really think that this will bring. Here's just the timeline of the grant. So the RFP was released in August of 2024. Letters of intent will be due in June of 25. And then full proposals will be due in October of 2025, with really awards approved by our board in May of 2026. So it won't be until calendar year 2026 that these really get initiated. We want to give people plenty of time to really develop really creative and wonderful proposals, and really look forward to getting as many innovative ideas as possible around this. I should mention the Wellcome Trust came to the same conclusion in the UK entirely independently from us. So they're going to be funding about 5 centers of excellence in climate change and human health as well. And we look forward to sort of networking our groups to really increase sort of scope and capacity in the future. The other funding mechanism I wanted to make you aware of is we have something called our Burroughs Wellcome Fund Scholar in Residence Program, where essentially faculty can come and do a mini sabbatical at Burroughs Wellcome Fund headquarters for 2 weeks up to a year. These awards carry a total dollar amount of $125,000, and it's really meant to both bridge interests of the resident scholar with ongoing Burroughs Wellcome Fund interests, really capitalizing on the Research Triangle Park network and beyond to develop a work product by the end of their scholar in residence time. This is Mike Ferdig, who was from the University of Notre Dame, developed a nice program around malaria and antimicrobial resistance. We've had people doing science in the arts, evolutionary biology, and we look forward broadly to engaging others around shared discipline areas. So that's what I had to share with you today. I look forward to any questions you might have. And again, thank you for your attention. And most importantly, thank you for the important work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Muglia. Before we move on to the next portion of this, I'd like to introduce Dr. Hubert Lim, who's the Associate Director of IEM. He had some trouble getting on. Hubert, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and say what you wanted to say at the beginning. You're on mute.
Here we go. Yeah. Hello, Dr. Muglia. Apologies. I guess you can't have multiple co-hosts. It wasn't allowing me to get in, but nice to meet you. Thank you for joining. Dr. John Bischoff, as you know, wasn't able to make it, and he's serving as the director of the Institute for Engineering and Medicine. And I am the director of the Earl Bakken Medical Devices Center here at University of Minnesota. IEM is, you could think of it as a umbrella entity that spans the engineering school as well as the medical school, and bridges a lot of researchers and clinicians and faculty across the university in medicine and engineering at the intersection of that, and bridging also with industry. I won't say too much because of time, but just the idea behind it is that they push a lot of different initiatives across campus. Some are strategic partnerships where they're trying to foster big team science. Some of the programs that you mentioned too, and by the way, very impressive. I didn't realize the breadth and also the amount of capacity of your Wellcome Fund to be a Burroughs Wellcome Fund to support extensive research. But we do look at large partnerships across the university and with industry and some large scale projects that were in the $20 million+ projects as well that IEM has been able to bring together. There's a huge component also of education and professional development and workforce training. So you can imagine a lot of the local industry here coming to the university and being exposed to what happens in the clinic, clinical immersion, but also being able to teach the innovations and new research that's going on to a lot of the workforce in the industry with workshops and courses. There's also a big STEM component, especially for underrepresented students and individuals, as well as in certain regions. So some of the diversity programs also, I think, are very exciting. It's not only just at the level of college or beyond, but looking at high school and even elementary to be able to bring them in. And finally, the last piece that IEM works on is what's called the innovation pillar. And that's really trying to find new directions and new ways that we could push health and engineering together. Some of that actually focuses heavily also on commercialization, because eventually to get these out to patients. So I just wanted to introduce that at the beginning and
Great.
introduce myself. And also, I don't know, Dr. Paul Izio, if you had introduced, but the Visible Heart Lab is also under that umbrella of IEM.
Yeah, I'm Paul Izio, professor here in Department of Surgery, Associate Director for IEM, in charge of professional education and outreach. And the programs that you have there listed through, very exciting to hear. As Hubert said, we do a lot all the way from STEM education, but also courses here, developing unique training programs for people in industry, and developing international applications and apps that can train physicians around the world. We actually have networks where you can do international meetings and collaborations and study cardiac specimens online and discuss procedural developments. So exciting to hear. I think there's a lot of opportunities for University of Minnesota and ATP-Bio to collaborate with the Burroughs Wellcome Fund.
It sounds like it. It sounds, yeah, very robust sort of activities that you have there that I think are aligned with many of our priority areas.
One question I had, I don't know if we're going to move to the program managers and other colleagues, but do we want to wait till the end for questions, Mike, or do we want to do it
Well,
now?
I was going to ask, is this the time when that it's open Q&A for the rest of the hour?
Maybe I can introduce ATP-Bio because I was waiting for Hubbard to join us.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And Dr. Mugila and the other guests, ATP-Bio is a trans-institutional center with 6 institutions. Mass General, Minnesota is the lead, Riverside, Berkeley, Texas A&M, and Carnegie Mellon. It's really is interested in biopreservation. The way I describe it is living things becoming products, such as cell therapy, organ transplantation, coral reef preservation, so on and so forth. It's the supply chain management of living things become very important and critical. So it's really at the interface of engineering, biological sciences, and healthcare and biodiversity. It has three thematic areas: medical applications, biodiversity, and food sustainability.
Wow.
Like IEM, it has educational and other programs in it too. So it really well suited, and our trainees are MDs to undergraduates to even high school students. So very broad. So thank you for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Mehmet. Dr. Muglia, is it time for Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it's good for you guys.
Okay, so
Thank you for those overviews. Really very helpful.
right. So attendees, if you have questions or would like to know a little bit more, just type up your question for the Q&A in the Q&A box, and we will make sure those get read. But we'll start out because Hubert, you said you had a question.
Yeah, thank you for just seeing the diversity. So how do you work with the performers? Is it a quite interactive process where throughout the project there's kind of a back and forth feedback? Some of the DoD programs are quite interactive in that way, and NIH had begun to move with some of their U grants and cooperative agreements. So I was wondering, what's the level of interaction, or is it more that you have some set milestones or objectives, and then every year there's kind of like an annual report or some kind of meeting that brings some of the performers together?
It varies by program. I think Alfred with the postdoctoral diversity enrichment program has really set up an amazing sort of interactive capacity for their awardees. We fund about 70-ish new grants per year, and we bring every new PI to the Burroughs Wellcome Fund for our new awardees meeting every year to basically set up interactions with them. Alfred goes way beyond that with the PDEP folks. We have a separate section for them, and there's ongoing engagement of them. And all of our program officers usually convene our awardees at the various scientific meetings. Like Tammy was at Biophysical Society meeting and convened many Burroughs Wellcome Society for Neuroscience. We do convening of our recipients every year. So, and for our Physician Scientist Institutional Award, there's annual progress reports, but then we have sort of updates from them as well. Alfred, I don't know if you would like to make any additional comment around that.
Sure. Echoing Lou's comments, we engage with our awardees at different events, particularly ABACAMS and SACNAS, for the most part, after they've had the new awardee experience with orientation and a workshop that includes mentors as well as mentees. Um, in terms of reporting requirements, we do receive progress reports and financial reports on an annual basis. Those reports are reviewed by advisory committee. Payments to the awardees and the institutions occur annually. So much of the continued scheduling of those payments are based on progress being made or satisfaction seen in terms of milestones or meeting certain aims. What we're most proud of happens at the end of the fellowship, which is the transition into independency into an academic faculty position and early career transitions where we still maintain contact because we hope that they will mentor and provide outreach and engagement such as that they've received during their transition from postdoc to faculty. And a lot of that involves reporting back and sharing models or examples or efforts that have been successful in creating success for those that come behind them. We use the general phrase of pay it forward and pay it back as a part of a continuum. And then many of them are actually hosting new awardees in their labs once established and stood up. So they're quite familiar with the experience, but also with the fact that they've created capacity, access, and opportunities for others.
Tammy, don't know if you want to
Thank
add anything to that as well.
Yeah, I would add, so similar to what Alfred mentioned, we have the annual progress reports and financial reports that are reviewed by our CASI Advisory Committee. But I guess the other thing I would say is that, we are considering that we're supporting the scientist, not necessarily the project. So if the project needs to go in another direction or something like that, we're open to that flexibility. And in terms of additional support, so last year I piloted a program that we opened up to all of our postdoc and early career scientists, where we had a mixture of didactic lecturing around negotiating for academic positions, preparing for promotion and then tenure. These types of topics combined with career coaching. So providing that additional type of support more on the career development type side, as opposed to specifically the science. But we are also always there to address any questions that may be arising or any challenges that they may be having, if it is, if there is something around the science as well, and trying to help them through that too.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. It gives me a good sense of kind of the way the structure works, and appreciate that. I'll have another question, but I'll wait for others to ask, and then I can ask mine after.
We don't have any questions from the attendees yet, but I was just wondering from anyone on the Burroughs Wellcome team, what, for maybe people who have just completed their graduate studies or just starting a postdoc and are interested in this or looking to transition within the next couple of years to a faculty position, what kind of advice would you give about engaging with your program, especially if you're someone that hasn't had a lot of grant writing experience?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. One of the things that so many of our grants, as I mentioned, are bridging awards from usually senior postdoc to early career to independent investigator. And usually the awards are competitive. They're highly accomplished in their areas, but they haven't negotiated a startup pack. We review all startup packages for our awardees, and give them guidance based upon our experience with our other awardees and what kind of packages that they've been able to secure for their startup as well, in terms of protected time, dollar amount, all of the things that that go into that. And again, we really view looking for opportunities for our awardees very broadly across initiatives. And we have done a number of workshops for them around science communication, around grant writing, around other activities, because we know there's an appetite for it.
So
Tammy,
go ahead. I'm sorry if there was more.
Tammy, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, around the grant writing piece, I was actually about to put something in the chat because we have a public seminar. This is specifically on CASI, but that includes information that I synthesized from looking at successful letters of intent and seeing what kind of commonalities were in all of those successful letters. And we, lay that out. And then also looking at ones, because we have a multi-stage process for CASI. So we have a letter of intent stage, and the subset of those are invited to write a full proposal, and then another subset are invited to interview. And so we've got reviewer comments at each stage. So this link I'm going to put in will link to a presentation where we talk about feedback at each of those stages in terms of anonymized grant reviewer feedback. But I would say probably the one of the top things that I see, or the top two things in terms of the grants, are like people might write a letter of intent that is very, like, they have great goals, but they're very vague in terms of like what they're saying they're going to do. So trying to not give a little bit more information about what you are going to do in a hypothesis-driven way. And the other, on the flip side of that, would be individuals that give too much jargon, so that you have to be a real specialist in the area to understand it. So avoiding that and trying to find that middle ground balance. But I'm going to put a link here that if people are considering applying for CASI in any event, they can go to that site, and it'll have about an hour-long video that gives some tips on grant writing.
Yeah, that's in the chat.
Wonderful. And I'm sure those are really good suggestions for any grant that anybody's trying to write.
Maybe I'll ask others are kind of thinking of their questions. I really liked the oh, sorry, I saw your hand up there. If you want to ask your question.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the opportunity for the regulatory science. I do a lot of translational research, a lot of commercialization activities, and there's not enough support for, translational science, right? And regulatory science, and just the processes that are involved. A lot of funding goes to the translational research, as you mentioned. This is not for a clinical trial. I want to learn a little bit more what could be covered under there. So, for example, I run the Earl Bakken Medical Devices Center, and we have a lot of companies that we're trying to support, also entrepreneurs. And, these are early stage companies where, of course, they could go to seminars or webinars and work with regulatory experts and CROs and so forth. But really, what's interesting that's happening in the landscape of regulatory approvals is there's a lot of novel things that even FDA is struggling to figure out how to deal with them. And so, would it support, for example, having like a docking program where we bring lots of different companies together and regulatory individuals and experts, and then we create a program on trying to, take the know-how and learnings of other people. Of course, there's some confidentiality and proprietary things that we have to be mindful of, but, having a program where we start, it might be a 3-year program where then these companies come in, and to a certain extent that they can share their experiences in these novel types of technologies that are coming through, in how to handle the approval process. Many may go the de novo route, for med tech particularly. I'm not in the drug space so much, but, may go the de novo route, but some might be hybrid technologies that are coming out. And then more recently, app-based on devices, right? I mean, this is becoming a very big question of how you handle AI and things like this. But I was wondering, is that something that falls under that umbrella? I want to get your thoughts more of what is kind of the boundaries of what can be funded.
Tammy, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, well, so just to give you an example from our last funding announcement. We actually funded individuals or we're funding someone who is developing an evaluatory framework for artificial intelligence-based technologies and using skin lesions as a use case. And the hope would be that this sort of framework could be translated to other use cases. But also with the what you mentioned about FDA and whether they will buy into this. A strategy. So I guess the thing I would say is that it doesn't have to specifically be for FDA. It could be something that is for the international standards organization that ultimately the FDA may come around and adopt. Or it could also be something addressing more global harmonization or things in Health Canada too. So I also wanted to mention that. In terms of So I guess I would say, I mean, the majority of things have been centered around a research project. For an educational program per se, that may, I mean, I'm not sure what the appetite would be for that. I think, because one of the things that we have is an implementation plan, which is how you're going to translate the learnings to the regulatory space. And I'm not 100% sure how that would work in that space, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be open to it. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
No, that's pretty much what I was thinking as well. I think it's an area that really is one of the ones I'm most excited about, because I think there are a few other funding mechanisms that really address this. And, and maybe just thinking about even doing some kind of event, where we bring these people together to help shape it, would be, I think, a very useful activity. One of the things we really haven't made explicit around it is we're very interested in promoting health equity as well, especially as new devices and drugs are being developed. And, again, thinking about how pharma, academe together are thinking about, how they're ensuring, certain populations are not left behind. It will be, I think, something we're very interested in doing as well.
Yeah, I meant to add that because that was actually built into our rubric for evaluating proposals. And the artificial intelligence example I just gave, I mean, part of that was born out of the fact that some of the data going into those images that AI was being trained on were not representative of the full population. And if most people have lighter colored skin, if you get someone that's got darker skin and the algorithm wasn't trained on that, it was shown that it's not as accurate. So addressing those types of issues are something that we're especially interested in. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. If there's different workshops that you're planning to do, would be excited to join. It's a passion I have, and some projects I've been involved with where we have to think kind of outside the box in terms of how do we move this. And even when you think about underrepresented, patient populations, you might have to be creative in how you gather more data to increase the N numbers. And FDA regulatory agencies being willing to look at more real world or maybe not as traditional clinical trial type of data, but more data that's maybe piecemeal, but having some rigor around how you could analyze that and pull data sets. It could be very interesting.
That's really a priority for this program, Hubert. I think you've articulated it very well, and yeah, I think we would appreciate your ongoing involvement with helping us think through this.
Yeah, thank you.
Mehmet, you had a question?
Yeah, maybe I can ask a more specific question about two types of projects we have within the ATP-Bio and see if those are within the scope. One is we are very interested in organ transplantation, a big issue, which also drives inequality in organ transplantation, is that you can only keep them alive for a few hours, so you have to basically find the next available guy and transplant in an emergency situation. But if we make it a month to 2 months storage time, it will change the landscape. So we have interest, people doing very high-end fairness analysis on when you have a disruptive technology using machine learning, how do you distribute it properly? So would that be the type of things you will be looking in healthcare type applications of fairness and equity?
Yeah, I think looking broadly across applications, I think organ transplant isn't a carve out for it, but again, it fits into so many of there's so many related. If there's an early career investigator doing that, that's eligible. If there is a strategy around, again, FDA guidance around organ preservation techniques, other things, that would be, again, something that the regulatory sciences, sort of component might be appropriate for. And then, again, if there are tools that the community needs to build that broadly advance, health equity around organ transplantation, that could be, again, partially one of our competitive awards, but also it might be something that we might consider for an ad hoc mechanism if it was a unique enough general resource for people to be able to utilize.
Okay, that's right. And another area, probably outside of your scope, but we are climate change and health is very interesting. We do not do much of that within ATP-Bio, but we do climate change and the health of Earth. In other words, health of biodiversity. We have collaborations with Smithsonian and others where we are trying to preserve biodiversity of coral reefs and trying to do engineering of coral reefs, regeneration of coral reefs due to the changing climate and acidification. That's not healthcare, but will that be something?
It's not healthcare, it's human health. And I think, all of these things have ramifications for human health. I think you just articulated, you talk about reef preservation. Well, that's an abundant nutrient resource that's going to affect nutrition broadly among human populations if it's not attended to. Extreme heat, addressing extreme heat directly, obviously has many ramifications for nutrition, crisis management. But, all of these things, if they ultimately lead sort of by an indirect step to human health, that is certainly likely to be the majority of cases that we're going to be seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Another point I wanted to make to the career awards at the scientific interface, which is seeking to fund postdocs, at that non-life science, like whether it's physics, chemistry, mathematics, like those that are trained in those backgrounds and applying it to biological questions, that program. We also have climate change and human health as a call out in that area. And we have funded things, as Lou indicated, that also are indirectly addressing human health as well. So that's another, so I guess just say that aside from, the programs we have specifically in climate change, we also have a call out for those in other programs too. So.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. We have a couple questions, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to get time for them because the last panelist that we haven't heard from, Dr. Laksha Gangwar, has been waiting patiently. Laksha, I'll let you introduce yourself and to make the pitch or ask the question that you want to make. So go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yes, so it was a great talk to hear, and especially like me coming from an early career and a researcher. So I'm Laksha. I have an opportunity to lead the ICYR, which is an international cryobiology young researcher, where all of the people are students, grad students, postdocs, and early career researchers, where we are working for cryobiology, and that has imminent application for human health, whether it's transplant, cell, tissue, organ cryopreservation, and so on. So yeah, I just wanted to say, like, especially the researchers who are joined from ICYR, that this is a great place and an excellent resource to look for funding and awards. And most of the times we are at multidiscipline. We are at either of interfaces of physics and engineering, biology, engineering, clinician and engineers. So this is a great resource in terms of looking for those funding opportunities. And I think I'm excited, and hopefully all the early career researchers check out the website and awards. So thank you for the webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lakshay.
I see a couple questions in the Q&A box. What I would suggest, Dr. Franklin, is that you maybe explore with Alfred and Tammy, possibilities for. We always look forward to creating networks and sort of hub activities. I think that's a little bit longer than we can probably answer on this call. And then, there was the question about veterinary students, and our career awards in medical sciences does support veterinary students as one of its target areas for clinical sciences. And we have veterinarians supported in our pathogenesis of infectious disease program, veterinarians supported in our CASI awards. So if they're coming from an area that's outside, bringing in some experience that's outside of direct biologic experiences. So we do recognize the need, and we look forward to supporting talented trainees in veterinary sciences as well.
All right. Well, with that, our time is up. Again, thank you to all the attendees, to the panelists here, and especially to the Burroughs Wellcome Fund team. Thank you so much for your presentation, and I have no doubt you'll be hearing from some of us.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Thank you. Have
you.
a great afternoon.